Hey everyone, Heather here. How's it going? Today, this is going to be a video all about C.diff, and this is kind of a part 2, and it's been inspired by all of you who've watched my part 1 video on C.diff. Many people are looking for answers with regard to C.diff. They're not finding helpful or effective answers and results with the Western medical approach, which typically involves very invasive antibiotics which simply press and suppress C. diff, pushing it deeper down into your colon. And so when there's a stressor, when you eat a triggering food, when your immune system is triggered, the symptoms, the pathogen tends to resurface and cause symptoms all over again. So the intent with this video is to further educate you on C. diff and to give you even more tools to help with your C. diff healing process. So one thing that most people don't know about C. diff is in all the years I've been working with C. diff and helping people clear it from their bodies effectively without suppressing it, but actually clearing it from their bodies with sunlight, with diet, with my quantum level healing practice. This is a really effective way to approach C. diff. However, what some people don't know is that C. diff never occurs by itself. I have never in all my years saw C. diff just by itself without other gut pathogens in it. And most people are surprised. We'll do a DNA stool test. C. diff will come back positive, but there's other pathogens that come back positive, and oftentimes even in higher levels than the C. diff itself. So something that's super important to keep in mind is that when you're healing C. diff, there's other pathogens in there that need healing and need removal as well. It's never just about the C. diff. It's never about just getting the C. diff out. Yes, getting the C. diff out is helpful, but this is why I do a GI map DNA stool test with people, because we can not only get a look and a picture of how much C. diff is in your body, but we can see levels of all other pathogens in your body as well. And C. diff never exists by itself. So, for example, when you go to a hospital and they test you for C. diff, that's all they typically test you for. They're not testing for other bacteria in your stool. They're not testing for other pathogens in your stool. They're not testing for viruses or fungus in your stool. They simply limit it to C. diff. It's a very reductionistic approach, and even their treatment approach is super reductionistic. It's just like take antibiotics, which is unhelpful, which makes the situation worse, which doesn't remove the pathogen. It simply pushes it further down so you don't feel the symptoms until you get triggered again, and then they resurface. So really, when it comes to C. diff, if you're someone who's looking for real answers, I would tell you to avoid the Western medical model, because it's unhelpful and it's not going to rectify the root of your issues. Of course, none of my videos are intended as medical advice or intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. But if I were someone with C. diff, I would go as far away from the Western medical model as possible, because one, it's not helpful, and two, it tends to make the situation much worse. So also, we're not getting a whole picture. You're not getting a clear picture. You're seeing you have C. diff, so people reach out and they email me after they watch the videos, after they go to ancestraldigestion.com and look at my site, and they say, hey, I have C. diff, what can I do? This is just a starting point. So what you want to do then is we need to do a stool test together to see what other pathogens are in your gut, so we can target not only the C. diff but the other pathogens as well. And this is why, because with C. diff, I've removed it from people who didn't want to do a stool test, and their symptoms go away, but then there's other symptoms in the digestive system that come up. And there's other symptoms such as poor sleep, which is a huge indicator of one's digestive health. Usually with digestive issues, there's always or frequently poor sleep that's accompanied by it, because of this disturbance in the gut-brain axis that occurs when there's a sunlight deficiency in the body and when there is excessive loads of pathogens in the gut. So that communication in the hormones and the signaling from the gut to the brain cannot occur when there's a lot of pathogens, when there's a lot of inflammation in the gut. And getting C. diff out is just the first step. After we get C. diff out, then we need to see, okay, what other pathogens are at play. A lot of people have E. coli, some people have H. pylori, some people have viruses, some people have candida overgrowth, some people have parasites. There tends to be multiple co-infections in the gut when it comes to issues with C. diff. And you all learned from my first video on C. diff that the liver tends to be compromised and bile production tends to be compromised in every single case of C. diff. A lot of people who've had their gallbladder removed are much more prone to C. diff because their liver and gallbladder, since it's been being removed, the liver is this huge portal for filtering toxins from the body. And anyone who has leaky gut or gut pathogens that are having difficulty being removed from the body, like C. diff, this tells me that there's an issue going on with the liver, because when there's leaky gut involved, and for those of you who are just starting your digestive journey, you may not know what leaky gut is. Basically, leaky gut is when the surface of your intestinal lining, particularly your small intestine, becomes porous, and the foods that you eat are able to pass through into your bloodstream, and this causes immune and autoimmune reactions in the body, and they can cause anything from fatigue to puffy eyes to poor sleep to hives to histamine reactions to psoriasis to Crohn's and colitis. And so what happens is, over time, when these pathogens are not removed, the liver becomes bombarded, and when the liver cannot get rid of the pathogens, when the liver cannot get rid of the toxins, this is when the gut becomes compromised. This is when leaky gut occurs. It's not first a problem with the gut, it's first a problem with the liver. So a big approach that I take with individuals that I work with around C. diff and all other gut disorders is we're not just going to focus on the gut, because that's somewhat of a reductionistic approach. We need to focus on the liver, and we need to focus on removing the pathogens so your liver has less of a toxicity load to deal with. So if you're someone with C. diff, I would highly encourage you to reach out to do a DNA GI map stool test together. That way we can get an idea as to all the pathogens that are in your gut that are causing the issues, because it's not just the C. diff. The C. diff is definitely going to cause issues, but there's usually a host of other pathogens in there that are synergistically causing symptoms and discomfort, and these have likely been in there for years and have just continuously built. So people with a strong gut microbiome and a strong gut flora, these individuals tend to have lower levels of pathogens in their gut, so when they come in contact with something like C. diff, they're able to process it and move it out of their system. Not everyone who comes in contact with C. diff will acquire it. So if you've acquired C. diff, this tells me that your liver and your gut microbiome are currently weak. They need restoration, they need healing, the pathogens need to come out, because the more pathogens you have in the gut, the more susceptible you are to other infections and gut infections. So it's really important to get these infections and pathogens out, the multiple layers, not just the C. diff, because I want to prevent you from having a reoccurrence, and that doesn't just mean getting the C. diff out. It means let's get all these other pathogens out as well, so your gut microbiome can be robust and healthy and be able to naturally fight off any pathogens that come in. And the more you remove these pathogens from your body, the better you'll be able to remove pathogens as they come in a really effective way. So one thing that is super important to the gut healing process that is overlooked in 99.9% of all both Western and alternative digestive healing practices is sunlight. So for those of you who are just getting started, if you're not able to do a stool test with me, if you're not able to engage in one-on-one work with me, the very best suggestion I could give you is to go to my Patreon site, patreon.com/quantum level healing, and you'll have full access to my sunlight prescription. And so if you're someone out there looking to heal your gut, you need the sunlight to help heal the pathogens and to help reset the circadian rhythms, the circadian clocks of your gut. So in every single disorder, digestive disorder, there's a imbalance in your circadian biology. Your circadian biology are basically genes or clocks throughout your body that help determine night from day, season from season, hour from hour. Most people today live their lives under artificial light, and this is a signal to your body that it is continuously solar noon. It's continuously noon, whether you're looking at artificial light at midnight, or if you're looking at it at 3 p.m., or if you're looking at it at 6 a.m. The message you're giving your genes and your gut clocks is that it is solar noon whenever you do that. And this has a massive impact on how your gut microbiome functions, and it gives it's just a huge determining factor in the health of your gut microbiome. So when somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I'm dealing with C. diff, or I'm dealing with colitis, or I have this autoimmune gut condition, I have Crohn's, I have C. diff, what could be causing this? Number one is that you're exposed to too much poor light, too much artificial light, and you're not getting the correct exposure to certain sunlight spectrums that actually help to set your circadian biology and that help to stimulate certain neurotransmitters like serotonin, which we know is predominantly found in the gut. How do you make serotonin? You make it from sunlight. And the same thing goes for dopamine. How do you make dopamine? You make it from sunlight. The same thing goes for melatonin. How do you recycle your melatonin stores? By certain spectrums of sunlight. Now, these aren't all spectrums of sunlight, so it's why I encourage you to go over to my Patreon site to access the sunlight prescription to help start your gut healing journey. And so when you engage in the sunlight prescription for your gut health, it's going to be really important to get your actual abdomen, your gut, in those certain spectrums of sunlight that I outline in the sunlight prescription. And this is key to healing the gut microbiome. If you're someone who's not able to afford or not ready to engage in one-on-one work with me or do that stool test together, this is the very first place to start, and it's going to be much more effective than taking any supplements or a bottle of probiotics, because you're going to naturally get those from the sun. The sun is like a nature's pharmaceutical without side effects for healing your gut microbiome, your brain, for healing every mitochondrial disease there is out there. You can also get a link to the sunlight prescription on my digestion website called ancestraldigestion.com. So I hope this video was helpful and informative to you all with C. diff. But the thing that I want to take home here for you all today is that know that if you have C. diff, there are other gut pathogens in your body that have made you susceptible to attracting C. diff, and addressing and removing all of the pathogens, including the C. diff, is your key to gut health and healing the symptoms. So here's just a really quick example. I had somebody who I'm working with around C. diff. They contacted me. They said, hey, I have high levels of C. diff. I'm having 20 to 30 bowel movements a day. Okay, this is really typical in advanced stages, acute stages, particularly of C. diff. I said, okay, let's do a stool test together so we can see the whole picture, what's really going on in your gut on multiple levels. So we get their stool test back they're completely shocked to hear that E. coli levels are higher than C. diff levels, that streptococcus levels are higher than C. diff levels, okay? That candida overgrowth levels are higher than the C. diff levels. So we need to take a look at the full picture. We need this holistic approach when it comes to removing C. diff. Western medicine doesn't do that. Alternative medicine doesn't have great approaches for this because they don't rectify the root causes of the issue. And this is where my Red Door quantum healing practice comes in, because it effectively helps to remove these pathogens, their biotoxins, and their biofilms from your body. And as of yet, I don't know of another modality that does that, Western or alternative. So people who reach out to me with C. diff and they engage in this modality together, we do the sunlight prescription, we get a nice digestive detox diet going. There's never been a case where they haven't been successful with engaging in this protocol for, it depends on the advanced stages of your C. diff and how many pathogens in your gut to tell how long it will take to rectify something like this, but it can take as little as a month to start seeing, full reversal of symptoms. And usually in a 4-month period, people can make outstanding progress when they engage in these protocols that I've put together for people with digestive issues, because there's just not good answers. There's not effective answers out there for people with digestive issues at this time. And I can honestly say that from my own firsthand experience with digestive issues, until I started to incorporate these integrative approaches into my life, into my self-care practice, into my digestive healing practice, it wasn't until I started to do that I began to see full turnarounds in my gut and digestive health. So if you're someone out there and the medical world is saying, hey, there's no cure for this digestive disorder you have, there's no solutions, just take antibiotics or take these pharmaceuticals or just take these probiotics for the rest of your life, that's a big red flag. And there's always answers. There's always ways to help bring relief not only to symptoms but to removing the pathogens from your body. The key is that you need an open mind to be willing to explore other modalities outside of the Western world to help support you along your healing journey. And many people are really rigid around their belief system with regard to Western medicine has all the answers. They just don't. They simply don't. It's a thought form our culture has taken on. And if you want to get well, you have to approach your health in a way outside of how the masses or the mass populations are addressing their health. If you're doing it similar to the masses, you're probably not going to have huge forward movement in your health and healing process. We need to get outside of the way the masses are approaching healing, because they're very boxed in, limited, ineffective ways at treating the body. You cannot heal anything in Western medicine. There's no such thing as a cure, because they can't remove the pathogens. They can't remove the cause behind the cause of what has caused your issues. They can suppress symptoms really well, but they can't get to the cause. So this is just some inspiration to all of you to, if you're experiencing C. diff, I would invite you to be open to other modalities and ways of approaching it and removing it from your body. I would encourage you to get a DNA GI map stool test together with me, and I would encourage you to engage in my sunlight prescription. In the near future, on my ancestral digestion site, I will have a leaky gut prescription. That will entail also supporting the removal of pathogens from your gut. But diet is a poor way to address gut health. Just keep that in mind. Diet is like number 5 when it comes to healing the gut and healing all chronic diseases. we tend to put it towards number one, but really there's many other things that are much more effective at healing the gut microbiome. If we take a look at the work of Jeff Leach, who is a gut microbiome research expert, he does a lot of research on the Hadza. So it's a tribe in Tanzania that he goes to, and he tests their stool, and he lives out in the bush with them, and he studies their gut microbiome. Well, recently, the most recent study Jeff has performed with these individuals is he did a test where he fed the Hadza antibiotics, soda, basically every junk food you could think of. Okay, so he fed them all of these things that we've been taught as Westerners that are really destructive to the gut microbiome. Well, what do you think happened after he fed them these things? They had all these antibiotics, and then he tested their stool. Well, we would think that their gut microbiome was significantly compromised after this, but it wasn't. It didn't change at all from when he tested them on their tribal diet versus when he tested them on this Western standard American diet. And so many people are shocked by this, and they have no idea why this happened. But the answer is pretty clear, that the Hadza live basically on the equator. So they live in the 20-degree latitudes where sunlight never varies. They have 12 hours of sunlight a day, every day. So for 365 days a year, they're exposed to 12 hours of sunlight. So what this does is it highly increases something called redox potential. It highly decreases something called heteroplasmy rate. And these things, if you want to heal any condition, and you do those two things, if you increase redox potential and decrease heteroplasmy rate, you will become a healing machine. It's like a game of Tetris. You can never lose. And so when these things come into their body, because of all of the electrons that they're obtaining from the solar spectrum 12 hours a day, they're able to, when these things come into their body, just like that game of Tetris, they meet that toxin and it's dissolved. And they meet that antibiotic and that pharmaceutical, and it's dissolved. It doesn't have an impact because they're exposed to the solar spectrum 12 hours a day, 365 days a year. And this is somewhat of the premises behind my sunlight prescription, because when people learn to utilize sunlight in certain spectrums, this is exactly how they can help to improve their health and healing capabilities, including their gut microbiome. So we got into a few more things that I wasn't expecting to get into here, but I hope you found it helpful. If you want to learn more about my approach to the gut microbiome, please feel free to hop over to my site, ancestraldigestion.com. If you're interested in one-on-one work together, please send an email my way. You can do so on that site there. And at the very least, I would highly encourage you to start your sunlight prescription as soon as you can. And literally, you can do that on my Patreon site for $12 a month, and you can cancel at any time if it doesn't resonate with you. There's no commitments necessary. And on that Patreon site, I post 2 to 3 plus times a month to help keep you motivated, to help give you new information around your sunlight prescription, how to utilize it in your daily life for healing. So it's definitely an ongoing process. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Good luck on your C. diff healing journey. If you're wanting some deeper help that is more of an integrative, alternative approach, I would highly encourage you to reach out to me so we could talk about what that could look like for you and help you to actually get well. All right, see you next time.